Hello, and welcome to Meeting the Beloved, a webinar and podcast series that really is going into what the heck is sacred union, how did we get dumped into it, and what are we supposed to do, and OMG. So I'm Anais Salas, I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and with me are two dear friends, Anastasia Townsend and David Foyle, and they are in Corvallis, Oregon. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for watching this podcast. We have different perspectives on the journey, and we want to share some of the things that we think are the attributes that all of the Sacred Union journeys have in common. And some of us are on our way, like Anastasia and David have been together for a while. They're going to tell their story. So they're experienced Sacred Union waivers is great. I'm still in the throes of the process. So here we go. So Anastasia and David, perhaps we can begin with, well, how about if you share how and when you met and where you were in your individual lives when circumstances brought you together?
Yeah, that's a good place to begin. Well, we were actually both in other relationships. Mine at that point was 16 years, and
mine was about 6 years. This is about 4 years ago.
Yeah, or more.
More.
Yeah, and I had just moved to Oregon from Washington, and I think I'd been, let's see, it was 6 months into having moved to Oregon when my youngest daughter had been invited to a birthday party, and with someone who was very special to her still is actually to this day, but they were in 3rd grade, and it would happen to be David's son, who's the same age as ours. They're my youngest, 3 years apart.
3 days apart.
3 days apart. And so they were really good friends, and that's how we met. But neither one of us was looking for anything because we were already in relationships. So from there, it took six more months before we even considered that there was something a little more. But it was also in this unique framework of, at the time, for us, polyamory, actually.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was going to be my next question.
Yeah. So I wasn't thinking of giving up my long-term relationship at all. And
I was moving out of my 6-year relationship. I was slowly pulling it apart and strategically disassembling as carefully as possible and fairly slowly. But I was definitely, actually, when we first met, I was still very in that relationship. Mm-hmm. And then there was a sequence of events that cued me to change my mind about that. And so I started pulling that apart.
Can I stop you there, David? Because you said something very interesting, and I think this is important for the divine masculines in the dynamic who are in external partnerships or who are on the verge. If you could share as much as you're comfortable sharing about the events that had you realize that you weren't in your right place, highest good, and something needed to go?
Sure. Yeah, it was a really challenging time for me, and that relationship was tumultuous, at least, and I definitely did a lot of growing in that situation, but a lot of it wasn't healthy for me, and I could see that. I set some boundaries with myself, really. I'd been going to a men's group, and it was extremely beneficial for me to hear some healthy, positive feedback from my peers, and to get some support in being who I am and being honest and true, not hiding anymore. And so I set some basic boundaries for myself with, stating if this is a healthy relationship, these are the things I need. These are the ways I'm going to be treated. These are the way I will treat others, some basic ground rules. And I stated some of them to my partner at the time. And some of them I kept to myself, like, but when some of these boundaries were clearly crossed with no regard for my sovereignty or my health or my emotional balance or the work I'd been doing, there was one of those, or there was actually a cascade of key points in the way I was being treated that I was like, this is the last time I will accept this treatment. And when those dominoes hit, I took a step back and said, no matter what, I'm changing this now. And there was this quick cutting of my emotional attachment. Not that I quit caring, but I wasn't going to change myself to support someone else's dysfunction. And
I really like, that's a great way to express it. Yeah, very well said.
Luckily, I'd already set up the situation, our relationships, so we weren't in the same space anymore, and I could just sort of strongly cut those ties. And there was a little bit more separating to do, but there was a key point where I just let my heart break and cried my way through it as much as I needed to in about a day, and then just dragged myself up and started moving on. And I'm trying to
impressive.
It was really impressive. I remember watching him do it, and it was very impressive.
Yeah, it's impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So you met at a birthday party. David was in transition. He had set up an intent. He had become intentional about his boundaries. He had become intentional about taking better care of himself. He had become intentional about making sure that he was held with respect and regard within his parameters for what was a healthy relationship for him. I'm saying all that, people, because you've got to be intentional on this journey. You can't leave things to chance. You actually have to use your throat chakra and say what you want and what you will or will not accept. Okay, so Anastasia, why don't you jump in with what was going on for you?
Well, I could take it back a little further in my journey with this, and I had been doing inner work for a long time. I had also, I was aware of some idea of what we have, know as twin flame, but in the relationship that I was in, I didn't have any. I had no thought that it was something I could find, because I was already in a relationship then. So I looked at it and, listened to other people about it at the time, which wasn't a lot out there. And that was really even before I moved to Oregon. So I'd say even in early as 2009, I can remember finding a little bit. I didn't look at anything too intensely. I just was aware of it. And other people who seemed to be intent on finding it. So, other than that.
Okay. An interruption in the signal, just letting you know. Okay, I think you're back.
Okay. So my situation was really unraveling as well, but I really was in so much denial about it. And it was a really, really hard one to unravel in my situation. So talk about slow. I really, really I took a long time to do it and was not even aware that that was, on some regard I was. I knew that I no longer wanted to carry the weight of all of it. I knew that I needed to stop doing that. So as I did that, even through physical pain, I literally, it started to break apart on me, sort of in an energetic sense, but physically painful.
Can I stop you right there? Because you said something interesting. You said that you recognized that you couldn't carry all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's break down what the this is. What was it that you were no longer able to carry? Let's be really clear and specific, if you would.
Yeah. It was the emotional responsibility. That was one thing. The relationship had quite a bit of emotional trauma that had happened over the years. And I generally was the one who was the damage control on everything.
Mm.
And I also realized that I was the reason it even continued, all of it, because I would hold it all together. I was holding it all together, emotionally and physically, and yeah, I guess mentally as well, all of it, spiritually. And I had built up a lot of denial, even though I considered myself a pretty aware person to it all. So yeah, what happened then was I had developed a physical thing with my thyroid that was very self-limiting, but still extremely painful. Like the pain got my attention. And then after I got myself through most of that, I realized I needed to pack up my entire house and move to Oregon. And it didn't matter whether he was, going to come with me or not. And in fact, he said he was going to come, a couple months behind me, but 2 years later, he still wasn't there. And so I was kind of managing it all down in Oregon by myself, with him at a distance, and learning a lot, and really, looking at it all and being able to actually have the space to keep letting it break apart and offloading all the stuff that I had carried. Mm-hmm. And the kids were happier. And so, then 6 months later enters meeting David, which again, in no way was I even considering another relationship. I was just there. It just wasn't on the radar. And mm-hmm. Oddly enough, too, even for David, he had no consideration of wanting anything else either. Even as he was out of after he had gone through releasing himself from it.
Okay, but you were both in and out. You were sort of in the deconstruction phase of an existing relationship. How did polyamory fit into this process for you?
That was a transition piece, especially for me. I realized, well, what if we just, saw someone else, brought other people? For me, it looked a very specific way. Like I needed to be able to be in love with this person. I wanted this person to be a part of the whole family thing. Family's really big for me. So I wanted just another person in the relationship. So I really studied polyamory. I looked into it deep, and the integrity and all the principles of, if you understand polyamory, are very clear and well defined. And so meeting David, and at some point I realized he was open to that idea as well. He wanted to see, other people and experience that sort of freedom in relationship. And also, I think you had a piece of wanting to just really experience women as friends.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting because we're of different generations, and I'm in case you can't tell, I'm the older one. But in my generation, it was called open marriages. It wasn't necessarily called polyamory.
Mm-hmm.
It was when people who were in committed relationships, and in my day, people were mostly in marriages, and one or both partners decided that they weren't being fulfilled at some whatever level, and rather than break apart the marriage, there was an agreement to have an open relationship. So I just want to, for all of you listeners who are younger and maybe going to learn something here, and for all you old timers who know what I'm talking about, I just thought I'd toss that in there. Okay.
Yeah, and I really think the whole movement of polyamory stemmed from that exact concept that you just laid out, because what ended up happening is we needed ground rules, we needed particular boundaries. Now, there's all I think it's as unique as the person who comes into it, but you can find those basic guidelines out there to learn about it. Well, it worked. I mean, it really worked. We literally were in relationship that way for a while, where other people were involved, and even my ex was a part of it, and that was interesting. I mean, I learned hard and fast who had the who is an integrity, who had the ability to be just honest and open and trust.
And who were the predators?
Yeah. So it taught me really fast. Yeah, that's an intense time. That when it came down to it all, I mean, there's a lot to talk about in there, but when it came down to it, ending that my long-term relationship had nothing to do with David. It did and it didn't, but ultimately it really was about me just choosing me.
I think that's one of the key points of this process, is as we're moving along and coming into union, one of the key common attributes is we are thrown into the washing machine where Source pours in the emulsifying detergent of self-love, self-love, self-love. And just like, what? Because if you've been living clueless about that for most of your life, which most of us have, being thrown into that literal mix of emotions and challenges, and even recognizing that you're not in a self-loving place, and you don't know why, and you don't know how you got there, and you're not sure how you're going to get out of that place. I mean, this to me is one of the common attributes of the sacred union journey. Okay, so maybe we fast forward a little bit to the point in your timeline where you began to recognize something else happening and began to recognize each other in a different way.
Yeah, because we had no clue. In a sense, we really didn't. I didn't know who David was to me at that point. I knew he was, amazing, because turning my head away from what I was in that in itself was pretty amazing. But for me, one really significant point was opening of gifts, like a place where I kind of blew wide open, and that was so significant. Just, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'd have to say one of the first key moments for me was the second time we met. We went over, I took my kids over to Anastasia's house for a play date, maybe a week or two after the birthday party, and ended up spending 4 hours there just downloading with her, like as a friend. We got to hang out and just talk about all the weird stuff that we think. And that was the first real gift for me, because like Anastasia said, I was looking for true and pure friendships with women. Like I was trying to work through my personal male distortion around women and around physical relationships with women, and trying to just purify how I approached a healthy relationship and what that really meant. And so that second meeting after the birthday party, I got an amazing taste of a really incredible friendship with a really amazing woman. And I walked away just with my head spinning, like, this is exactly what I was asking for. And I had no idea that it was ever going to show up. But then a random play date, and I get this incredible gift. And so I was immediately like, friend, you know. And so that was the beginning of that specific gift for me. Hugely healing.
I think that's another common attribute of the journey, is as we're, without consciously knowing yet in the beginning of the journey what we're actually participating in, we're participating in cleaning up the dysfunctional, distorted relationship templates within ourselves and within our perceptions of the masculine other or the feminine other. And we are discovering outside of dysfunctional templates that we were all handed down, because there, what else was there? We discover the deep friendship and intimacy with or without expressing ourselves in a sexual way quite yet. It's a different kind of bonding, and it is a deep, deep opening into friendship. And I think this is another major attribute of the union process.
I would agree. David was my first experience with a man who it was very clearly a friendship, and we weren't going anywhere else with it at the time. It was not, I guess you could just say straight up sexual. It wasn't sexual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in truth, I wasn't super, at the time, I wasn't super attracted to him. Because he
had a huge beard and a bald head.
Yeah, that so wasn't my type. I was not into that. But
so
energetically he was.
The package issue came up.
Yeah.
Because here's really terrific energy. I really like it. I'm feeling all kinds of new and interesting things, but I don't particularly feel all that, the package is like, eh. Yeah.
Right. I mean, but that was also just a part of the place where I was at the time as well. I was very happy to have a friend and not have any other pressure of any kind involved in it. That's exactly what I did.
It's very, very cool that you were able to just sort of, be in the present. This is what's going on. I like this person. I want to hang out with this person. I want to get to know this person. And that's working. Okay, so let's fast forward a little further down your timeline where that shifted. How and when did that shift, and what were some of the things you noticed about that particular part of the process? Because It comes under the umbrella of truth, transparency, and trust. You know it does. Okay.
Yeah. It was kind of a trip because, let's see. Oh, I would say at some point in there, David did this thing that was pretty, now that I really know him, at the time, it was not him to do something like what he had done, which was with all this confidence. He told me, and we weren't going to see each other for like the whole summer. He was going off to do his thing. I had to go off and do my thing. And he told me, he said, when we see each other again, I don't know exactly what you said, but
it was something along the lines of, "You'll want me."
yeah.
Well, you're gonna want me when you get back.
Like, yeah, like, you know, sparks are gonna fly. Yeah. And I was just like, okay.
Pretty clear and direct, and not at all like me.
No, not something you would do.
I was expanding myself broadly and quickly that summer. So
I guess so. Now, from your perspective, David, what was the impulse in that sense of confidence and knowing? Where did that come from?
Well, I was, again, actively exploring my relationships with women, and that was going really well. And there was an intense friendship with Anastasia. And so there was a lot of discussion around my experiences and her experiences, and we had really deep and clear conversations about what we were both into and where we both were and where we wanted to go, and not even necessarily with each other, just at all.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know where that came from. It just it was just in me. Like, there was obviously an immense love for Anastasia already.
Not that we said that.
And something just told me that's what was gonna happen. It just came. I just knew. I just knew.
You had the, I don't know, je ne sais quoi, to be able to allow your lips to vocalize that. This is the part about the truth, transparency, and trust, because it's just there, and it's so powerful that it kind of, you move your lips, you say things, or you do things, and you're like, where did that come from? I don't know where that came from. Oh my God. But you, at the same time, you recognize it, that it's totally in truth, and you don't pull back from it. You don't withdraw from that, from humiliation or shame or embarrassment, or did I just make did I just make a huge mistake? It's interesting because that's a pretty fearless place for me, I think.
Sort of the gift was another one of the gifts that we have, starting out as friends and just having no qualms about completely laying our cards out on the table. There was just absolutely.
Okay, you're breaking up again. Go back for a second. Okay, you have no qualms.
Are we there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna roll back to the place where you were saying the word qualms.
That's one of the gifts that, and another gift that Anastasia gave me was the ability to be myself completely. She's completely accepting of me and who I am, and there was nothing to hold back about at any point. And if I was wrong, I was wrong, and I don't mind making mistakes. So I just let it out there.
That's so great. Okay, so we're not quite 30 minutes in, but I do want to see where we might want to go next, because you had the sense that, there was a growing friendship. You both were not really looking at making new commitments or being in anything necessarily committed. And at what point did that transition sort of show up? Okay, so he said at the end of the summer you're going to want me. Tell me more about that.
Well,
What happened for you, Anastasia?
What's funny is that in the summer we really didn't have a lot of contact with each other. I wasn't even sure, about anything. Just we hadn't really had much contact. But honestly, when the time arrived where we both landed back in the same place, I have to admit, when I saw David, it happened. It was like in that moment, it hit me and I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, I am feeling this. He was right. And it just hit. So from there, some time had passed, and we had an amazing sort of first experience, like that we decided to go out on a date, and there was an effect from our energy of just being together in this way that we both knew. We went dancing, and the whole floor was affected. Like the whole room was affected by this point. And that was our first kiss.
Yeah.
Like right there. And the energy was so intense that we kept it. We danced like till the place closed, and then we went out into the street, and I think we went down to the creek nearby to just kind of ground.
Okay, you're breaking up there a little bit.
So we went down to the creek to ground the energy and kind of really just wow. And as we were coming back up to the street, we noticed this man that was struggling, and as it unfolded.
Cool.
So
okay, so you encountered a man in the public area somewhere.
Yeah, and at that point in the night, you're thinking, okay, this could be just a drunk person, and but either way, he's a human being who appears to need some help. So between us and a couple other people, and the younger people who were
2 college girls.
No, they were younger. They were high school.
High school.
Yeah. Turned around, and we're all just kind of, at a distance looking, and then going, oh, wait, we need to respond to this. So we all ran in, and it was our first experience with this much energy that had, we saved his life. We literally had this experience saving someone's life with the energy that we had generated from just coming together the way we did. And we were just like, okay, this is interesting. So
it was incredible.
It was incredible. Yeah.
Life force.
Yeah. And this whole experience, I mean, for that man he was about to check out, and I could feel what his whole reason for being there in that moment was, does humanity exist? Do people care? That's what saved him, is love. There's love.
That was his big question.
Yeah. I felt it. I held his heart. His heart was about to.
Yeah.
He was pretty much out of his body.
Yeah. Okay, so that was another signpost, which is the amount of life force that people who are coming together in union, you can feel how powerful that is. And I actually think in some instances it can be overwhelming when you recognize that you're going to be generating that much and that intensity of connection and life force, and you're not sure exactly what's going to happen with that. So I think that was a really beautiful synchronicity for you to recognize the full potential of your being in that union energy and feeling what it's like to let that flow externally into the collective on the circle of life. And you're not going to blow yourselves up. You two weren't going to blow yourselves up, which, right? Because I think that's what happens in other coupling. The energy doesn't formulate in the same way or have the same opportunity to move in a truly, I love to call it the shareable wave, right? So I think that's another important kind of common attribute to the journey. Very, very cool. Very cool.
It got our attention for sure. Not in any way that we were like, oh, this is the twin flame thing. We still hadn't. It was a long time before we ever considered something like that. But we definitely knew that things were different.
Well, and that it was a different that I wanted. Like this feels like what I've been looking for. This feels like what I asked for.
Yeah.
You mentioned opening your throat chakra and speaking your truths and speaking your boundaries and being intentional. And I believe that's the point where I did speak, vocalized what I wanted in my life. And if I was going to have a partner, with a partner, if they were for me, I asked for Anastasia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is that moment. I'm in that place right now where in my journey, I was like, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm doing me, I'm like totally fine. Okay, it's been 22 years, nobody else is coming. All right. You know, and every now and then I would have a moment where I would kind of, I'd be just doing me, and then I kind of look up and kind of go like this and go, nope, back to doing me. And in the moment where what I use the words, the universe conspired. The universe conspired. Now, prior to that, I had been, unbeknownst to me, I was already on the sacred union journey, and I kind of felt that, but I didn't understand it. I was confused. I was like, what the heck is this? And I was not in a position to be really clear about, oh, I'm going to be purging out all of my other relationships that are not with my sacred union partner, and I have past life memory, and that's going to include OMG, right? So there's that interesting part where I was connected to the bigger energy, but not in the physical, right? Because I'm still doing what I'm doing and working and doing my work, my inner work, my outer work, my, my mission work, blah, blah, blah. And so it was a little bit like, I feel like I'm in this, but I'm incredibly confused. And then there was the moment where there was, because of the past life stuff, where I'm telling you people, if you're watching this, either in your dream time or when you're asleep, or somehow you will be clearing out your past life relationships that have been in distorted masculine or distorted feminine. You're not going to escape this. So be ready for that, and it may really surprise you. So I ended up connecting with a partner from a major past life where the trauma was multi-party.
We lost
you. It's okay. I see that you lost me. I'm going to go back. It was multiple past lives. And at this point, Anastasia and I had recognized that we were at least two of a soul group. And then this third person that was coming in was a past life partner in the major drama of the soul, the past life that we were both like completely clear about. That was confusing. But what it did do was take me deeper into the source heartbeat of self-love and unconditional love, and coming out of fear and coming out of choices based in fear, and just simply riding the wave and not having to self-destruct or create destruction or more trauma, drama, chaos, and conflict, because my heart was really open. So I think that's another interesting attribute. And I wanted to make sure we kind of touch base on the past life piece, because whether you believe it or not, you're probably going to have some moments where your timelines glitch and you're going to be wondering what's going on. All right, so if you guys care to add to that or comment on that, go ahead.
Well, I think one of the things we figured out was that we could do work together. Like, we could actually work together to heal these things. Yeah, I think that was one of the gifts of it. I guess there was a moment where I had a big opening in that. I could see, it's when I really got clear about Atlantean lifetime, the Lemurian lifetime, things I didn't know about myself, and David probably didn't either. And opening that was the beginning for us. Like, it was good.
That's what I mean about the glitchy timeline thing, where suddenly you're gonna like, what?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How? Oh, whoa, right?
Yeah. And it was actually really clear. I mean, probably clearer than it's ever been, and so clear in one instant that one of the experiences, I started to speak in a different language. And I mean, it didn't last long. Because all of a sudden my brain flipped to, oh, wait, I better say this in English so he can understand what I'm actually saying. And we joked about it for a while because it was just funny, like so unexpected and interesting, you know? And after a while, it just kept opening. And at one point, it finally just kind of blew wide open, where I could full on speak the language, and it opened up, the more healing ability, and we've worked with it a lot with each other, and
yeah, awesome, right?
Yeah.
Once you give yourself permission, it's like, I think maybe we could. What do you think if we like? Oh, okay then. Wow, right? Yeah, I mean, you kind of go like that.
Right, but what this really translates as is trust. This is the base here. And we didn't just arrive there, but it was a slow process of building trust and understanding that I could trust him like I've never trusted a man before.
Exactly.
And it didn't happen overnight. It was continually revealed that this is how this worked with us.
Yes, and I think one of the things that I'm aware of, being in it from where I'm at, which is that I have merged etherically with my counterpart, and this has been going on in gentle increments since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Little bit, memory, little bit, incredible gifts, really mind-blowing. Okay, for me, like, okay, and the merging and the experiencing and sorting through.
Yeah.
And what other parts of us come forward, both to be healed, but already healers.
Right. Because I always thought of myself as pretty open-hearted and, really directed through my heart center. But what would happen with David was that we would get to a point of expansion where I would all of a sudden feel the edges of, where my heart was at. And I would feel it and bump into it. And I'd be like, whoa, okay, I'm like at an edge right now. And this is actually really cool. So I came up with the idea of making more room for love.
That's beautiful. I love how you put that. And it's so absolutely part of this journey is, you call it that. I describe it as the yes process, where we're brought to a place where we can either withdraw in fear and one or the other party can go no, and the heart closes and the throat closes and a lot of other stuff closes. Or we can take a breath and just, because the trust is building, we're able to say yes to the mystery, yes to not knowing, yes to I'm gonna show up again fearlessly with this kind of tremendous courage coming from I don't know where. And it absolutely does make room for more love, right? And it just keeps going like this.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
It really did. With the whole expectation and with the tremendous amount of curiosity and the continuation of more love and more trust. Even in small moments of just having the experience of my whole body tingling from the heart, just blowing open, which is where I came up with the term heartgasm.
Very good term, by the way. Wow. Yeah.
Because it's exactly what I experienced. I was experiencing these like orgasms through my heart, and it could be as simple as him saying, having a simple response to me that it went to my core.
Right.
Of like just mind-blowing experience of something I really never had. That it was a deep unmet need.
Absolutely. A deep, deep connection that was, there's it's hard to find words for this stuff because it goes very experiential and you're at a loss to describe it really. And you don't have the words. You're just having the experience.
Yeah.
I think I also want to touch on one of the things we've discovered, because we've known each other, Anastasia, a long time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came in to our relationship in 2016 and in 2017 was we became aware that our 7 chakra system was not and one of the energy centers that we lost and that I had been used to working for a long time as an energy healer, like 30 years ago, right, was the solar plexus.
Yes. Same for us. Yes, with our soul group, and that was an interesting experience that I had, personally, physically, energetically. I think I've described it to you as a moment when I felt a big energy coming, and I didn't know what it was, and I went to David and I said, "Hey, I feel something coming, and like, when it arrives, I just really need you to step up." Because in my world, as sort of a, learning hands-on healing and all that stuff, that was a thing I had skills there. Whereas for David, this was all that part was kind of new.
Yeah.
So in a sense, what I was asking him to do was just, hey, and I need you to like remember that you have this ability.
Yeah, so that's a request. Hey, wait a minute, something big is coming in. And we have had these moments in our soul group. Absolutely. Where it's like, I'm going to ask you to trust me and to trust yourself and to trust the mystery. Can we make that agreement?
He stepped right up. Yeah, he said, yep. Okay, so I didn't know when it was coming, but when it arrived, funny part was that it started out with us feeling separate, a sense of separateness. And we were like, what is this? Like I started, it was weird. And I started to verbalize it to him. I was like, I feel myself separate from you. I was just actually feeling an aspect of myself that was in separation, but it was so, we could feel it, both of us. And so, he acknowledged that you felt it too. And so I was like, okay, what do I do with this? All right, well, I'm going to go in and see what this is. And as I went in to do it, I found that aspect of myself, and it was in my root chakra at the time. And it was in absolute terror.
Yeah.
This aspect of myself. And there's no way that could hang out, here. So it was time to pull it in. It was time to integrate it. And as I did that, all of a sudden I felt, because I integrated into my heart, and all of a sudden I felt my chakra system, my root through my third and all the way up into my heart just go, boom, 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 like, whoa. And all of a sudden, I felt myself in a whole new space. And we worked on each other and, did our thing. And I, at the time, had no idea that what had just happened with what I thought was just me actually happened with him too.
There is that aspect of things. You're do-si-doing all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. So, he had actually integrated his chakras as well. Everything except for the third chakra, which just for me was really, really funny. I thought it was funny because, you had your reasons. I mean,
well, I'm in that now with my counterpart. He still has his third chakra, and I don't have one anymore.
Right.
So there'll be times when we're merging energetically, and I'm like going, oh, there's that third chakra. I don't really like the way that feels. And then there's a part of me that has to just relax and go, well, he's still got a third chakra. Yeah. So just make room for it.
That's what I did, and laughed as well, because it just, it's a funny thing.
It's an interesting sensation, however, to feel someone else's third chakra in your body, and you know that you don't have a third chakra anymore. I mean, I remember looking down at myself and going, now how is that possible, right?
Yeah, I bet. Ooh. So David and I tend to get real physical about the way we move things as well. Sometimes it takes for a whole upheaval of everything for us to move big chunks of energy. So we are working on not doing that anymore. But
I've noticed that about you. I've noticed this.
Yeah,
you move households.
We do, and it's we've got to stop. We're not quite there yet, but we're definitely in conscious awareness of this about ourselves, and we are we're working on it. So, but it works. I mean, it's working. And David had I don't know if you wanted to share about your third chakra story, but.
Oh yeah, let's hear from you on that, David. I'd like to hear what you experienced.
Excuse me. It was about the time I had that really significant dream, wasn't it? I'd been holding, I guess, a lot of pain and trauma from the loss of my sister 20 some years ago. And the whole process of integrating the chakras, like I'd been feeling so separate, like from her. Just it had no connection that I could notice or recognize. And in that process, I had this incredible dream where we finally met again, and I got to hang out with her, and it was just life-changing to have her back in my life again. Like I had missed her so bad. And we were in this beautiful frozen world at night, and we were going to go get some warm coats and go see my dad. And it was just happy. There were some distractions in there that I just sort of ignored. Like, no, that's not what I'm here to do. And she and I just got to hang out. So I woke up from that a completely different person. Just so grateful, and the healing of getting to see her again made so much sense after that.
So then we're in the process of again moving large amounts of physical matter.
Oh, moving the house.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, well, so the connection to all that in his third chakra is that here we literally had closed the door on our
Okay,
house.
pause for a minute because you're. Okay, good.
There we go.
Whoop, okay.
So we had literally just closed the door on this house. We had everything in the moving truck. We had to move, and
we were exhausted,
yeah,
sore, hungry, and about to drive away to our new home while I.
Which house was this? Which house?
Leaving Ashland on Grandview.
We really didn't want to.
Oh, okay.
House we moved into together. That's where we unified our households.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That in itself is a big story too to share. But here we are at this end of this co-creation cycle that we had begun. This, there's a whole piece to talk about in terms of our community as a sacred union couple, and how the community supports us in this and has made this just possible. So here we are ending this co-creation cycle, and David's third chakra, he's about to get into the truck to leave. We're getting into our vehicles to drive away, and he kind of shuts the truck door, and he comes over to me and he's like, I feel like I'm about to throw up. And I'm like, I just kind of laugh. I'm like, I know what's happening. And I didn't mean to laugh at him, but it was just funny.
It was funny.
And he just runs around the car and runs over and just like throws up into the garden, bushes or whatever. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's incredible. The timing of that. Like here we are just like literally closing this chapter, and you let your third chakra go with it. And I'm like, whoa.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah. It was incredible. And
beautiful. Yeah.
So much respect for this guy. That is the thing too, is our just
impressive, David. Impressive once again, right?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw up and get rid of the damn thing, right?
Don't do that anymore.
Yeah, he let it go. So fascinating. So there we
are. Yeah. Okay. So we have, this is the first of what will probably be a number of conversations, and we wanted to get this one sort of pulled together. We have some topics in the next one. We're going to probably have a more complete list of those topics, and we may do this as a live stream because it feels to me like this technology could work. And that will be one where we come in front of people and we'll let them know when it's happening. And if you're in a sacred union journey and you're just about, because we're coming up on another wave, We're coming up on another wave. And just like Anastasia was like at the end of the summer, probably was not too far past the Lion's Gate. You were like, oh, actually, he's kind of cute.
That was it. It totally hit me like a wave and took me, just like, ooh, okay. Yeah.
So we're coming up on another wave, people, and we have a solar eclipse in 2 days, July 2nd, at the time of this conversation, and then and you could feel the energy building, and I don't know for sure whether 2019 is actually the timeline on which I get to be in physical union. We will see, but the energy is there. And so I'm going to continue to ride that wave and continue to allow myself to be more deeply opened and more energized as a conscious co-creator. And we'll have a separate conversation about that, because that's really where we're all headed, and doing it with love, and doing that with so much care and a sense of multiple complex levels at which we're managing these details. And we'll include you in that conversation. And so with that being said, I think this is a wrap for today's first conversation on meeting the beloved. And I've been waiting to do this since 1996.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I lost my beloved in 1996, and he and I were about to embark on a healing and creativity retreat, working with couples who were waking up, that I had called Meeting the Beloved. And he died, and that didn't happen. And I've been waiting and waiting and waiting and healing my broken hearts. I have had more than one major, oh my God, talk about relationship trauma. And then it was just like, you know what? I think we better do this, because we're on the timeline crunch, and if we're not going to do it now, it's probably not going to be a better time to do it.
Yeah. I guess.
So you guys, last parting words for us here?
Yeah, I do. I would say that one of the biggest things I've realized about this was that us coming together in terms of what a divine union is that it's exponentially more powerful in terms of what your purpose is here. And that's mainly it. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's a big shareable wave.
Yeah.
It's big. It's really big.
It's really big.
It's really big. I remember when I was getting a glimpse of this, 1989, before 2001. I knew 2001 was going to happen. I had a dream about that, like 10 years before it actually occurred.
Wow.
And I was in one of those dreams, like your big dream, David. I was standing by the ocean, and this gigantic tidal wave was coming right at me. And I'm standing on the beach going, oh dear. Yeah. And I would have to say that actually kicked off. I had already had a kind of an awakening enlightenment experience, but that dream took it to another whole level.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Since then, I play in the ocean, and the waves are wonderful and gentle and loving and sweet, and so supportive and loving of the continued expansion and growth.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Anais Salas. You are
Anastasia Townsend.
And David Foyle.
Okay, awesome. So peace out to you in your new house in Corvallis. They've moved again.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And we'll be establishing some kind of regular schedule for these conversations. A lot of that is based on Anastasia and David's schedules, because they're both involved in complexities of life. So guys, thank you so much for sharing this hour with me and with all the people who will see this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Anise.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see how the recording turns out, and hopefully the interruptions will be bearable. Mwah!
Yeah.
I love you. Mwah. Okay.